Story 1. I remind myself how replaceable I am in the corporate world. I work hard but do not trust them. Everyone is replaceable, no matter their title. Story 2. I have an amazing wife and child, great friends, and a PlayStation 5. However, here is the interesting part. A close corporate friend told me, corporate problems aren't real problems. That really resonated with me. Story 3. Oh, I'm good at this, seriously. I refuse to think about work after hours. I have a subject that I actively switch to whenever work pops into my head. It works. I almost never think about work outside of my job. They have me for 40 hours a week. They cannot have a moment more. Story 4. Turn off all phone notifications and establish a barrier activity. For me, that activity is racing video games. One race between work and home each evening helps me be present. I also work from home, so the video game serves as my commute with less traffic. Story 5. Because I cannot do anything about it, you will never get to the end of your to-do list. I experienced burnout and recovered to get here, but it is a necessary condition to accept if you want work-life balance. Story 6. I have been working long enough and have had enough difficult bosses to know this does not matter. Do the bare minimum required to earn my paycheck and then, in a few years, move on to the next job with a slight pay increase. This is not what defines you. It simply pays you. Story 7. Once I log off, I mentally log off as well. Work does not follow me outside of the office. For the longest time, my bike commute home signaled the end of the workday, but after more than 20 years in the industry, it comes naturally. As soon as I clock out, I check out. Story 8. I engage in activities that are not related to my work. I encourage myself to concentrate on something different. Story 9. Ever since my first job, I have learned not to think about work outside of work. Now, I can't even explain what I do for my job when I'm not at work. I forget. Story 10. The moment I walk out that door, I forget I even work somewhere until my alarm goes off the next morning. You are not your job. You are a small factor in the company's success. There are plenty of other jobs in case things go downhill, and in the end, you are easily replaceable. Just do your work, receive your salary each month, and stop worrying during your downtime. Story 11. I write down everything in my mind for the next day on a to-do list specifically for that day. If something pops into my head when I am home, I will email it to myself to review in the morning. I also work out right after work to create a clear transition from work hours to personal time. Good luck. Story 12. It's hard. I usually go for a nice walk, have a bit of marijuana, and then unwind. This makes it easier for my mind to move on. Story 13. I take anti-anxiety medication, but that only helps somewhat. They provide me with a laptop and a mobile phone, so I am never really off work. However, they pay me very well, so it is a trade-off. For my own mental health, I only have a handful of contacts who can reach me on the weekends, and I silence notifications overnight. I manage this through the Do Not Disturb settings in iOS. For context, I manage information technology for a fairly large aerospace manufacturing operation. We have around 1,500 unionized, hourly technicians doing machining and assembly, along with another 200 in engineering, management, and support roles. The shop runs more or less 24/7 with some exceptions, so when it is outside my working hours, it requires escalation to someone on my team who is working those hours before it reaches me. Story 14. Making a conscious effort to fill your time with non-work activities, such as spending time with family and focusing on health, is important. Additionally, having a job you dislike can contribute to this situation. Story 15. It depends on how mentally invested you are in your job and current projects. Finding balance is important, but it is much easier said than done. Distractions can be helpful to some extent. Story 16. Easily, I close my laptop and don't think about work until I open it the next morning to start. Television, movies, gaming, dates with my wife, you get the idea. Work to live, my friend. Don't live to work. Story 17. I have spent entire evenings lying in bed, trying to sleep, while considering how to best implement the revised marketing schedule I proposed to senior management days earlier. Story 18. To be fair, as a corporate adult, it's more of a question of how I keep my mind off of Reddit during work hours. Oops, I did it again. Story 19. If it is occurring so frequently that you need to ask, you are either in the wrong place, need assistance managing stress, or both. Story 20. Separate work from home. If you work from home, ideally keep your work in a dedicated space, although not everyone has that option. At minimum, avoid using work devices for personal activities, which is a good practice regardless. Turn off notifications for work-related applications after hours. Find hobbies. Reading, gaming, building, music, art, hiking, sports, whatever it is, get invested in a hobby. It becomes easier to shift from a work-to-live mindset to a live-to-work mindset. Story 21. No email, no Teams, nothing work-related on my phone. When I turn off the laptop, the job ends. The simple. No, you will not be appreciated more if you sacrifice your own time. You work to live, you don't live to work. Story 22. I finish work between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., then close my work-from-home laptop and either watch the news or go grocery shopping. Story 23. It's not that important to my life. I work for 8 hours so I can enjoy the other 16. Work stops the moment I clock out, and anything that is pending can wait until the next day. It's not worth thinking about when I'm not working. Story 24. The moment I clock out, I mentally replace all work-related thoughts with movie plots, song lyrics, and debates about the best pizza topping. It works like a charm. Story 25. Buy an all-terrain vehicle and go trail riding. The only thing you can focus on is staying in the moment and riding the quad. Nothing else enters your mind, no work thoughts at all. Story 26. At the end of each workday, I make a list of priorities for the next day. I do not end the day until I am satisfied that I have accomplished everything I needed to. That sense of accomplishment provides me with peace of mind to relax until the morning. Story 27. Tough question. For military leaders, there is no such thing as after hours. I often manage issues at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., going straight into the duty day at 6 a.m. and working until 9 p.m. Then it's rinse, repeat. What I have found helpful is preparing a decompression routine once I reach my front door. This routine helps prevent my mind from wandering back to my calendar or to-do list for the week when I am supposed to be home. Commonly referred to as work-life balance or harmony, there needs to be an off button at some point because work will always be there, even after you are long gone. That routine could include a series of scripted activities such as running, showering, eating, or reading an audiobook. Alternatively, you might wander through your evening while giving yourself a list of possible distractions to consider when thoughts about work arise during your time off, such as playing a video game, watching a reality TV show, or enjoying a soothing video of yard renovation. I hope this helps. Personally, I struggle to find balance, but this is a constant pursuit, and it is necessary to avoid burnout. Story 28. When I started to work from home, I found it really hard during the dark days of COVID-19. In the end, I built a room outside to work in, which I can lock at the end of the day so I don't see my work equipment. I also don't have my work email on my phone, which helps as well. This was a significant issue in my previous team, and I dreaded starting work, thinking about how many emails I would receive from management complaining about various matters. I have since changed teams, and now it is much better. I rarely think about work, and when I do, it is because I have just thought of a solution. When I am debriefing with family, I limit how much I say and for how long. Story 29. Other people have mentioned it, but realistically, you may not always be aware. You can go long periods without thinking about it because you are engaged in activities such as reading, spending time with a significant other, or pursuing a hobby. However, there are moments when you find yourself sitting on the couch, and your mind drifts to thoughts like, what meetings do I have on Monday? I forgot to run a report yesterday. I need to remember to schedule that meeting with someone. In the best-case scenario, you realize you are thinking about it and simply stop. Story 30. I compartmentalize. When I am at work, I focus on work-related tasks. I go to the gym most nights after work, which helps me transition from work mode to personal time. My gym friends and I rarely discuss work, making it an ideal opportunity to disconnect. Stress can blur the lines, but I find that engaging in a separate activity helps. Story 31. You will reach a point of burnout if you continually obsess over work. Some individuals switch careers or bounce from position to position, wondering why it never feels right. I have seen a manager move from cleaning houses to selling real estate and then back to the office in just over a year. I care about the outcome of my work, but I do not have strong feelings about the actual tasks I am performing. I simply go in and focus on what is in front of me. I cannot do more than that, and since I am not getting in trouble, I just keep moving forward. Story 32. Work isn't thinking about me, so why should I be thinking about it? I am prone to nihilism, which is both a blessing and a curse. I see very few things as important, and one of those things is thinking about work after hours. I structure my day so that the last 30 to 45 minutes are dedicated to planning for the next day or the following week if it is Friday. Then I don't think about it in the evening. I focus only on things I can change, which helps as well. It's a tough mindset to achieve, and it doesn't happen overnight. As many people do, I have come to realize that time is short. If I work all day and then think about work when I'm not at the office, life feels even shorter. Story 33. I forget about work the second I close my laptop. I give my best when I am there, but once I leave, I focus on myself. They are not actually your family. Story 34. I have too much going on in my real life to think about work during my time off. Once I sign off, I'm done. Evenings, weekends, holidays, and vacations, work is the furthest thing from my mind. As a social worker, I have to turn it off. The issues I deal with during the day would drive me insane if I kept thinking about them after hours. I have to block it all out, but I stay busy, so I really don't find myself thinking about work at all after hours. Story 35. Family first. I shut it off and switch to dad mode. They don't pay me enough to worry about work outside work hours. It sounds like you are either overloaded or not good at your job. There is no in between. Story 36. I use work as an escape from home, and I know it's not healthy, but it has prevented me from harming myself so far. Story 37. Why do we need to conform to the idea of being a corporate adult to have this experience? What about people who work for schools, nonprofits, or small businesses? Story 38. It took me 10 years, but I found a company with a true work-life balance. There are times when my mind wanders to work after hours, but that is not the norm. Story 39. Even when you're not working, you're still working. God forbid you have a work-related nightmare. The number of times I've dreamed of work is overwhelming. It's just a normal day, and then I wake up. True torture. Story 40. Honestly, I am responsible not just for the staff but also for the building. I panic at every message and phone call that indicates something has gone wrong. Story 41. I couldn't care less about my job. If the whole place disappeared with everyone in it except me, I would be frustrated only because I would have to look for another job. Nothing at my office matters. Nothing we do is truly important to the world outside. I am here because it is easy and I still get paid, though not a great amount. Nothing I do is urgent. It could all be delayed a week and it wouldn't really matter. The second I clock out, my work doesn't exist. I don't think about it because I truly don't care at all. Story 42. Conditioning. Step 1. Ensure you are not accessing email communications. Stay unplugged from consuming material. Secondly, remember that you have family, a significant other, and friends, and by giving your time to an entity driven by profit, you are missing out on valuable relationships. You can begin here. It's a process of conditioning. Avoid burning yourself out. Attending to one task often leads to another. It will never truly be finished. Story 43. Leave my laptop at work. Place the work phone on the entryway table, and do not look at it until the next morning. Story 44. I'm not corporate, but I'm right there at it. It's hard, especially when corporate calls to ask questions about the store I manage. I was just there, and there's no milk on the shelf. Well, it's my day off and I have 5 people scheduled to check and fill it. Guess I'll call and tell them to fill it. Oh, you already told them to? Well, thanks for letting me know, boss. Bye. You have to program yourself to say, forget it. Don't think about work. Don't think about numbers, budgets, or displays. Let things fall into place until you go back to work. Story 45. After 20 years in the military, enduring both mental and physical challenges, corporate life feels easy. I can disconnect the moment I walk out the door. There may have been a few instances over the last couple of years when something weighed on me, but usually it is not the case. Story 46. By having a family and a few hobbies, I have a daughter, play games, and do photography. I could use a lot more time than my off-work hours and still remain busy. Story 47. I am not curing cancer. Nothing I am doing for work is important enough in the grand scheme of things that I cannot have my nights and weekends to myself. Story 48. I work remotely and have an office in my house. Once I finish working, I close that door, and all work stays in that room, no work outside of it. I believe that the work will get done. Whether I stress or not, it will be accomplished. There is always more work, and I will never get through it all. So there is no getting caught up. With what I do, no one is going to die if I make a mistake. It will not cause a major disaster or have truly devastating consequences. With all that, I do my job well and leave it all behind when I am not on the clock. One last tip during the day: I log off for lunch every day. I disconnect, do not answer phone calls, and do not respond to emails. I take that time to recenter, which helps reduce stress and keeps my mind clear. Story 49. Don't work for an organization that disrespects you and your time. I am fully aware that this is easier said than done, but it is the truth. Who you work for makes a difference. No work communications on personal devices. No emails, no messages. If working from home, physically put away work devices after the workday so I can't see them. Out of sight, out of mind. Use the out-of-office message liberally when on holiday. On Friday afternoon, make a list for myself for the next week so I don't start worrying if I've forgotten anything. I know I haven't, I wrote it down. It's all about setting boundaries and managing time. Story 50. I have 2 young children at home who keep me unplugged enough for it to feel like a break. Whatever it is can wait until the morning. If it is serious, I will receive a phone call, but people know my rules. Story 51. I set clear boundaries. Once I am done for the day, I disconnect completely. No emails, no messaging apps, and no thinking about that one task I could have finished. A post-work ritual helps too, whether it involves going to the gym, taking a walk, or jumping into a cold plunge to reset. Physically separating work mode from personal time makes a significant difference. Story 52. What am I supposed to think about? Sure, I might vent to a friend or ask my friends since we have similar jobs. But I can't really do anything if I'm not physically at my computer, so it doesn't really come up. Unless I have an interesting problem I'm working on, then it might come up now and again. Story 53. I'm good at compartmentalizing. However, when I'm trying to fall asleep, I often can't get a work problem off my mind. To distract myself, I watch videos on a streaming platform until I fall asleep. Story 54. Turn off notifications for email and messaging after a certain time. I am unavailable from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. unless someone marks it as urgent. Carve out time for activities you enjoy. I am typing this between sets in my morning workout, and I like to cook dinner at night. Both activities help clear my mind. Lastly, keep a notebook by your bed. I do not solve anything by jumping out of bed to do something or worrying about it all night and losing sleep. I write it down and it becomes my to-do list for the next day. This clears my mind and I can get some sleep. Story 55. Having to cook, clean, feed your child, ensure they do their homework, and prepare for school the next day takes up most of your time from 6 to 9 p.m. After that, you can relax with your spouse for a few hours before repeating the routine. Story 56. Of all things, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder comes in clutch here. I step out of the building and poof, all thoughts and memories of the workday are just gone. Story 57. Don't you think about something you've dedicated a significant portion of your life to and have to revisit daily? Why would anyone expect to sever your mind from it? This isn't a fantasy. The best you can hope for is a distraction for a while. Hobbies, relationships, and children. Story 58. I train and teach martial arts with my wife after we finish our day jobs. Afterwards, we usually cook dinner and watch a show for a while. There's not much time to worry about work unless I am on call. However, I don't see much wrong with thinking about work occasionally while off the clock. Some of the biggest breakthroughs I've had in overcoming obstacles have occurred during a shower, while walking the dog, or while driving. Just don't stress over it constantly, and you'll be fine. Story 59. I have a fulfilling home life with activities that keep my mind engaged when I need to be mentally stimulated. If an intrusive work thought enters my mind, I will email myself a quick note like "call Bob in the morning," and then go back to ignoring my work obligations until the next day. When I am on paid time off, I turn off my email and team notifications on my phone and do not bring my work laptop on any trips. If it's a real emergency, my supervisor or a colleague can call me, but that has never happened. Story 60. I find hobbies that require focus, such as cooking, gaming, or building something. Sometimes I have a work thought and I push it to the back burner. If I remember it tomorrow, it's a good idea. Story 61. Alcohol, and when that didn't work, marijuana, ultimately led to healthy life choices like walking the dog. Once you realize that it is all fake and you are very disposable, things are put into perspective. Additionally, having some close friends die at my age due to stress and cancer provided clarity on what truly matters. Story 62. Why do you let it bleed over? Work is work. Occasionally, I read an article or scroll through a website and think that could help at work, so I send it to my work email and then move on without thinking about it again. Story 63. I don't. The stress is always there and ruins my Sundays. Tabletop and video games are great distractions for me. I'm just glad to be done with on-call duty, so I'm not dreading the weekends when I am on the schedule. If I had received one more call because a team decided not to validate their changes at midnight on a Friday, I may have had to talk to human resources about correcting my behavior. Story 64. Honestly, I feel quite the opposite. I generally struggle to maintain my focus on work instead of being preoccupied with things outside of work. For a while, I couldn't wait to get home to have a drink to slow down my thoughts. At times, I felt I would perform better at my job if I could drink while working. It's not healthy, and part of the reason I've tried to eliminate alcohol from my life, but I still have trouble getting into a work mindset. For better or worse, I'm a procrastinator, so eventually, the part of me that gets things done quickly at the last moment kicks in. Story 65. Reading, sports, and video games are enjoyable activities. However, there are many nights when I struggle to put away my work phone. Story 66. We all think about work from time to time. It should not cause you distress or consume all your free time. If it does, the issue may not be with you but with the company. It seems like you are overworked and underappreciated. I have been there. Story 67. I started working at a young age and was assigned to a repetitive job. I dreamed about it and thought about it. I eventually became a company owner, but the same worries persisted, just at a different level with a higher salary. I reached the burnout stage, sold my business, and went to Thailand, where I had the best sleep of my life. Now I want to get back into it. Story 68. I work for a large multinational insurance company, and I don't think about work at all after hours. My secret? I simply don't care about my job. It's a means to an end, and all I have to do is not get fired, which is fairly easy. Story 69. My laptop remains at my desk in the office and does not come home with me, nor do I have any work notifications on my phone. In case of an emergency, my boss can send me a text or call me, but there are typically no emergencies related to my role. Story 70. Writing software is a roller coaster. There are intense periods of crunching to meet deadlines and lulls where I do almost nothing. I try to embrace those downtimes. Story 71. I'm fortunate to walk out the door without worrying about work until the morning. I have a good internal switch that allows me to stop thinking about it until the following day. Story 72. I don't. I will get distracted during an evening or weekend with the kids and home tasks, and I will forget about work for large parts of the time I am not there. But it is always on my mind. especially if it has been a tough week or there is something important happening the following week that I am dreading. It will linger. I try to have the mentality that that is a Monday problem, not a Saturday problem, but inevitably it will return to my thoughts. Story 73. I go to sleep just fine. I wake up most nights and toss and turn with the mental gymnastics my brain performs. Story 74. I don't think about work. I don't have email or chat configured on my mobile device. I don't use any bring your own device policies. If work cares enough, they should provide the equipment. I'm fully available if something comes up, but it requires an actual phone call. If I'm behind on a project due to my own lack of productivity, I'll work. If I'm pulled off a project to help or focus my attention on something else, I reset the expectation that the work I was pulled from will be delayed. Set your boundaries, enforce them respectfully, and communicate proactively, and you should be able to unplug as well. Story 75. Setting boundaries, including no emails after hours, engaging in hobbies, exercising, and reminding myself that I work to live, not live to work. Story 76. I don't. My corporate experience might be a little different, as I own a niche software company, but I think about work often. I don't have regular office hours and work from home frequently, so my freedom allows me to mentally check in and out as I choose. I might be doing my work thinking on a Saturday, but I could be snowboarding on a Tuesday with my mind not on work at all. Balance is the key. If I worked for a large corporation, I would shut my work brain off at 5 p.m. on Friday and not revisit it until Monday morning. Giving them mental time when you're not being paid isn't fair. Story 77. If I have a great idea for something I am working on outside of work hours, I send myself an email with the thought, and then I can set it aside and enjoy time off. Critical thinking happens during work hours. Story 78. An old job I had in the service industry had a saying, check your ego at the door, as in leave your ego outside. I reversed that and said I'd check my job at the office, as in I would leave it there. Corporate life demands you work harder than you are being paid to finish more projects and tasks than you have time for. In the end, you are expected to fail, but your failure will occur at a point beyond where you would have landed without pressure to perform. No matter how much work you finish, there will always be more waiting for you the next day. Do what is possible for you to do, but only at the level you are being compensated for. Do not stress about unfinished work or what consequences you might face for not completing tasks. The corporate environment does not care about you, your success in life, whether you can pay your bills, or your mental health. Corporate America offers little regard for you. In return, you should prioritize your own well-being over the company's success. You are simply filling a seat. Remember that when you clock out and check your job at the office. Story 79. Do not take any calls after leaving work unless it is very urgent. Have an after-work hours routine such as cooking, going to the gym, watching TV, or walking. Make sure to spend some time talking to your family about your day. Story 80. I have a separate cell phone for work, which stays in my home office during off hours. Aside from that, it has required a change in mindset. My work is valuable to my company, but if something were to happen to me, they would post my job within 48 hours. Story 81. I used to think about my job a lot, usually reflecting on how terrible it was or how ridiculous my supervisors were. Now, as a solo system administrator, I think about it again because I am concerned about the safety of my network, especially since I work for a nonprofit organization and care a bit more. Story 82. I remember that I would be replaced in an hour. Then I look at my children and that's it. I remember what my real priority is. Story 83. I struggle with this. I'm also on call all the time. Taking phone breaks is the best medicine. Activities where you can't be disturbed are also immensely helpful, such as bike rides, spending time with family, and playing sports. Story 84. I can't explain it, but my mind automatically switches, and not a single work thought passes through after hours. At least, not any that affect my day. Story 85. I remind myself that I did my best each day, and if I needed to do more, I would have stayed to do it rather than leave and think about whether I should have done it. If I left, it means I can wait until I'm back in the office to address it. Story 86. You don't get paid after hours, so if something isn't done, it will get done tomorrow. Unless it is costing the company money and someone is complaining about it, it can wait. You can also be let go quickly, so why worry? Story 87. It's easy. This place ceases to exist when I walk out the door. I don't care about them, just as they don't care about me. Stress-free. Story 88. I seem to be the opposite of most people here. Once I log off, that's it. My brain switches from work mode to family mode. It's rare that I think of work in any great detail on evenings and weekends. Work to live, not live to work. Also, it isn't my money, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Story 89. Try to have hobbies you are passionate about or at least very interested in. If it involves a high-intensity sport or resistance training, it can be beneficial because you really need to focus. You cannot think about work if a ball is being thrown at your face. Focus. This may not work with running, as I have found I can zone out and think about work while running. However, when I am doing a deadlift, I need to concentrate on my form or my back will suffer. It all depends on your interests. If reading helps you escape work, then do that. Or try dancing or hiking. Story 90. Changing companies every 2 to 5 years can be beneficial because it is remarkable how, once you leave a position and a company, none of that experience matters to you. Story 91. I usually do not have a problem during evenings and weekends, but at night when I am trying to go to sleep, my mind starts working on tomorrow's to-do list. I have to sternly remind myself that I am off the clock. If I am not being paid, I am not doing the work. Story 92. I really don't care. It's that easy. As soon as my shift is over, it feels like I'm a severed employee. Story 93. When I work from home and close my laptop, that's it. These are people who live in the computer. In the office, when I leave the building, these are just people who inhabit that space. They don't exist anywhere else. I have been laid off twice, and I refuse to develop any sort of affinity with a company that can say nice words to me and then let me go the next day. I used to work in technology primarily for scale-ups and startups, which was intense. What really helped me was understanding that the companies I worked for were not trying to solve anything significant. In my opinion, if a job or industry is not directly related to people's health or urgent matters like well-being and safety, then I shouldn't be losing my mind over it. My job is not who I am. It's just a part of me, providing for my needs and helping me book my flights. I previously worked in a very American and Asian workplace, but now that I'm in a European setting, I am much happier. Story 94. This is why I don't like working from home. I prefer to keep my personal and professional lives as separate as possible. I do not work at home. If it involves more than responding to a few simple emails, I'll return to the office. I also avoid discussing work at home with my partner or socially. If someone asks what I do, I provide a basic and vague answer, then redirect the conversation to something more interesting. Story 95. I recently joined the corporate world, 1 year ago at the end of February. Coming from a background as a chef, I experienced a significant disconnect from work. I was always worried about the restaurant. My new boss told me, "Listen, nothing is an emergency here. No one is going to die if we don't get things done." That advice greatly helped me. I now have a nearly total disconnect from my work. I finish at 5 p.m. and will still answer calls from certain higher-ups, but only until about 7 p.m. After that, I stop completely. Story 96. Honestly, I tell myself I am clever enough to figure out where I left off in the morning. I am methodical in that I do the same work consistently, so I am good at picking up where I left off. I cannot emphasize how little I care as soon as I am off the clock. I have already recorded my time, and I do not intend to waste the remaining moments I have to myself worrying about any of it. Story 97. What do you mean by off work? Are people still thinking about work when they leave and go home? I am done thinking about work by 3 p.m. every weekday. Story 98. Turn off my laptop and know that my planner has tomorrow's to-do list, so I don't need to think about it. Story 99. By not caring. Having 2 screaming children in the house from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. is a good distraction. Story 100. Sometimes, I play imaginative games in my head to distract myself. For instance, if I could redecorate my living room for free, what would I do? I mentally choose wall colors, new furniture, and pictures. It kind of works, especially in the middle of the night. Story 101. I don't have a problem keeping work off my mind when the day is over. Between my wife, the house, and the pets, I have plenty to occupy my thoughts when I log off for the day. Story 102. As a software developer, I used to constantly think about solutions to bugs and new features. It was hard for my family since I wasn't really present, even when I was spending time with them. During lockdown, I decided that if I was going to be home all the time, I needed a way to separate work from my home life, so I started making to-do lists. At the end of each day, I write down the tasks I need to work on the next day. On Friday, I write down the tasks I need to address the following week. My mind now understands that it doesn't need to spend any energy worrying about these tasks if they are recorded in a list. This method also works well before I go on vacation, as I don't even bother trying to remember what I need to work on when I return. Story 103. I don't care. I pretend to care, which is enough. But I don't really. That's what not having debt and having money in the bank is like. I pick and choose what I care about. Story 104. Years of abuse in the public education system caused me to develop a mindset that disconnects me as soon as I leave school or work. I dedicate 10 hours of my life each day to my job, but I do not give any extra time. Additionally, I am old enough to remember life before smartphones and constant connectivity. My time belongs to me, and I am not defined by my job. Story 105. I do my best at work, but I do not buy into the idea that work is a family or corporate propaganda. You are replaceable no matter what human resources or the boss says. You do not matter to the company, and likewise, the company does not matter to me. I do not work after hours without compensation that is agreed upon beforehand, including emails. If needed, I only work a certain amount of overtime hours each month. I do not have any work-related information or communication on any personal devices that I pay for. If they want me to have access to anything after hours, they must supply the phone and pay me an on-call rate for having to respond. If I am unable to complete my job within my 8-hour shift, that is not my issue. It is a company staffing issue. I will not be taken advantage of. This may limit me, but I am fine with that. My mental health has improved significantly since making these changes. I am upfront with every employer I work for or have applied to, and I know it has cost me some good jobs. Sadly, I only learned much of this in the last 8 to 10 years, but it has helped me separate my work life from my personal life. Story 106. Hobbies at home include spending time with family and being outdoors. It doesn't always help during high-stress periods, but most of the time, it remains a primary topic of conversation with work friends. Story 107. I focus on how behind I am in life, unsure of where I am going, where I want to be, or how to get there. Suddenly, my work troubles feel insignificant and pointless. The only time I worry about work outside of hours is when I feel I am not involved or contributing enough. Story 108. Reminding myself that I am completely replaceable and that if it is not life-threatening or an emergency, it can wait. Story 109. I don't seem to have that problem. For me, I have a hard time keeping my mind on work while I am there. Story 110. Honestly, as I have gotten older, it has become easier, and I have learned to draw a line between my work self and my personal self. The moment I shut the laptop, I forget about work until the next morning. I recommend it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.